Across the world, even casual gamers recognized Ryu's silhouette. The white GI, the red gloves, the determined stare. But behind that simple design lies a story rich with philosophy and depth. Ryu's tale isn't just about fighting, it's about the search for meaning. It's about an orphan who grew into a man of unmatched skill, but also a man haunted by the temptation of power. A man who walked the fine line between hero and monster, constantly testing himself, pushing himself, and refusing to settle for anything less than mastery of his art and his soul. The story begins with tragedy, but as you'll see, it's also one of hope and redemption. Part 1: The Forging of a Warrior. Origins and Training. Ryu's story begins with mystery. He was found as an abandoned child with no family, no name, and no ties to the world. He was taken in by Guken, a martial arts master who would become the single most important person in his life. Guken raised him at his dojo in the mountains of Japan, teaching him the ways of Ansatsuken. This martial art had a bloody past. It was originally created as a deadly assassination style. But Guken rejected that philosophy. He redefined Ansatsuken into a fighting style of balance, discipline, and personal growth. To Guken, true strength wasn't about killing, it was about mastering yourself. And this philosophy became the core of Ryu's journey. Years later, another child arrived at the dojo, Ken Masters. Ken was the son of a wealthy businessman and was sent to train under Guken to learn discipline. At first, Ryu and Ken couldn't have been more different. Ryu was quiet, serious, and entirely dedicated to training, while Ken was brash, playful, and sometimes cocky. But through years of sparring and brotherly rivalry, they grew into best friends. Ken's fiery spirit pushed Ryu to be bolder, while Ryu's focus grounded Ken. Together they mastered Ansatsuken's legendary moves, the Hadouken, a focus key blast, the Tatsumaki Senpukyaku, or hurricane kick, and the iconic Shoryuken, the dragon punch. For Ryu, the dojo was his entire world. He had no interest in fame or wealth. Training and self-improvement were everything. Under Guken's guidance, he developed a calm, disciplined personality that would define him for the rest of his life. But this peaceful life would not last forever. When Ryu turned 23, Guken told both his students that their training was complete. He encouraged them to travel the world, test their skills, and grow as warriors. Ken returned to America, eventually becoming the United States martial arts champion. But Ryu had no interest in glory. He left the dojo alone, choosing a life of solitude and constant training. From this point onward, Ryu would become known as the Wandering Warrior, a man who lived for the fight but not for violence. He sought understanding, not domination. Part 2: The First World Warrior. Triumph and Turmoil. Ryu's journey brought him to Thailand, where the first official World Warrior tournament was being held. His goal was simple: test his skill against the strongest fighters in the world. But there was one man in particular who stood above all others: Sagat, the Emperor of Muay Thai. A towering figure with unmatched power and a fearsome reputation, Sagat was the reigning champion, and Ryu wanted to prove himself against him. Ryu battled his way through the tournament, defeating skilled fighters from across the globe. Finally, he stood before Sagat. The fight was intense. Sagat's speed, precision, and sheer strength overwhelmed Ryu. For most of the match, Ryu was completely outclassed. He was beaten down, exhausted, and on the verge of defeat. But then something inside Ryu awakened. A surge of dark energy coursed through him, driven by desperation and survival instinct. This was the Satsui no Hado, the surge of murderous intent. With his eyes glowing red and his body moving almost instinctively, Ryu unleashed a devastating Shoryuken. The blow landed with such power that it left a massive scar across Sagat's chest, knocking the champion out cold. By the tournament's rules, Ryu was declared the winner, but instead of feeling triumph, Ryu was horrified. He had tasted a dark power that he didn't understand, a power that felt unnatural and dangerous. That victory changed Ryu forever. It haunted him, planting seeds of fear that he might lose himself to this darkness. For Sagat, this battle also marked a turning point. He became obsessed with defeating Ryu in a rematch, training relentlessly to settle the score. For Ryu, this fight wasn't just a victory, it was the start of a lifelong internal war. Part 3: The Shadow of the Fist, Akuma's Temptation. After the tournament, Ryu returned to Guken's dojo seeking wisdom, but what he found instead was tragedy. The dojo was destroyed and Guken lay motionless on the floor. Standing over him was a man radiating a terrifying aura. This was Akuma, Guken's brother, who had embraced the Satsui no Hado fully, transforming himself into a demonic fighter. Akuma had killed their master, Gutetsu, years earlier to prove his power, and now he had come for Guken. Akuma saw the same potential in Ryu. He recognized the darkness within him and wanted to push him over the edge. To Akuma, true strength could only be found by discarding all humanity and embracing the killing intent of Satsui no Hado. He taunted Ryu, warning him that he was destined to walk the same path. This encounter haunted Ryu. He became obsessed with training, not just to fight stronger opponents, but to resist the temptation of this dark power. He started traveling the world, fighting new challengers, searching for meaning, and constantly battling the darkness within himself. Part 4. The Alpha Years and the Rise of Shadaloo. During the events of the Street Fighter Alpha series, Ryu's journey became even more complex. He crossed paths with Rose, a mysterious fortune teller who warned him of the growing threat of M. Bison, the leader of the criminal organization Shadaloo. Bison, like Akuma, saw Ryu's potential. But instead of testing him, Bison sought to control him. He kidnapped Ryu and attempted to brainwash him, planning to make him a vessel for his psycho power. Ryu nearly lost himself during this time, but his friends intervened. Ken, Sakura, and Sagat all fought to bring him back. In one of the defining moments of their rivalry, Sagat helped free Ryu from Bison's control. Not out of kindness, but because he wanted to fight Ryu at his best. This act of respect reinforced Ryu's belief in the bonds between fighters and their shared code of honor. These years solidified Ryu's reputation. He wasn't just a skilled martial artist, he was a man whose entire existence revolved around the journey for strength and self-mastery. Part 5. Street Fighter II. The Rise of a Legend. The Second World Warrior Tournament brought together fighters from across the globe, each with their own motives. Ryu entered, not for glory, but for growth. While Shadaloo's criminal empire expanded, Ryu's focus was inward. He wandered between fights, training in isolation, meditating at waterfalls, and spending time at Gauken's grave to reflect on his master's teachings. During the tournament, Akuma re-emerged. In one of the most shocking moments in Street Fighter history, Akuma used the Raging Demon technique to kill M. Bison instantly, declaring him unworthy. This showed Ryu just how powerful and dangerous the path of Satsui no Hado truly was. Akuma wanted Ryu to embrace this darkness and become his ultimate rival, but Ryu refused. He would not sacrifice his humanity for power. Part 6, Street Fighter III. The mentor and the master, Street Fighter III marked a bold new direction for the franchise. The tournament was no longer just a battle against Shadaloo or M. Bison. This era introduced the Illuminati, a secretive and powerful organization that sought to reshape humanity. Its leader Gil was no ordinary man. Gil was a genetically engineered godlike being with control over both fire and ice, and he was building an army of elite warriors. Ryu, however, was largely unaffected by the Illuminati's schemes. Unlike Ken or Chun-Li, he had no vendetta against Gil or his followers. Ryu's purpose remained simple: to train, to grow, and to find fighters who could push him to his limits. He entered the Third World Warrior Tournament not as a hero trying to stop an evil empire, but as a pure martial artist, living by Guken's philosophy of constant self-improvement. Ryu's personality had matured greatly by this time. He was no longer the wide-eyed student eager to prove himself. He was a calm and seasoned warrior, already seen by others as a master. While Ryu still saw himself as a student, the younger generation of fighters like Sean Matsuda viewed him as a legend. Sean idolized Ryu, seeing him as the ultimate fighter. Ryu humbly accepted Sean's admiration, even training him and showing him what it truly meant to walk the path of a warrior. Ken also evolved during this time. Now married with a child on the way, Ken's priorities were changing. He still entered tournaments and maintained his fighting spirit, but his rivalry with Ryu transformed. No longer was it a test of ego, it became a symbol of mutual respect. Ken pushed Ryu to embrace not only skill, but also the relationships that fighting creates. Ryu's time with Ken reminded him that the life of a warrior didn't have to be a lonely path, even though he preferred solitude. As Ryu advanced through the tournament, he encountered fighters like Alex, a young and determined brawler from New York, who would become one of Street Fighter III's central characters. For Alex, fighting Ryu was like challenging a legend, but Ryu's calm demeanor and humble nature inspired him. To Alex, Ryu wasn't just a champion. He was proof that power and humility could coexist. Eventually, Ryu faced Gil himself. The battle against Gil wasn't personal. Ryu didn't fight him to save the world or dismantle the Illuminati. He fought him because Gil was strong, and Ryu's purpose was to test his limits. Gil's godlike power, his ability to control both fire and ice, and his near-immortal body made him one of Ryu's toughest opponents. Even after defeating Gil, Ryu didn't gloat. He bowed in respect, seeing Gil not as a villain but as a powerful opponent worthy of admiration. By the end of Street Fighter III's story, Ryu had reached a new level of maturity. He wasn't just a fighter anymore, he was becoming a symbol. He mentored Sean, inspired Alex, and continued to train with Ken. Though Ryu was always a wanderer, this era showed him taking his first steps into being a teacher. Even if he never fully embraced the title of master, he was proving Guken's philosophy every day. True strength is found through balance, humility, and the willingness to grow endlessly. Street Fighter III's narrative was about passing the torch to a new generation of fighters, but Ryu's presence was the anchor. He wasn't chasing glory or revenge, he was proving that the path of the warrior is eternal. Even with a new roster of characters, Ryu's journey of self-discovery remained the heart of the series. Part 7, Street Fighter IV, Guken's Return and Ryu's Redemption. Street Fighter IV takes place before the events of Street Fighter III, serving as a deep dive into Ryu's darkest days. By this time, Ryu was consumed by his battle with the Satsui no Hado. The darkness within him was growing stronger, and it wasn't just a temptation anymore. It was actively trying to take over his mind and body. The transformation into evil Ryu was becoming more frequent, and each time he lost control, he came closer to being lost forever. The story centered on SIN, a weapons division of Shadaloo led by Seth, a powerful synthetic fighter. Seth wasn't just a machine, he was a being designed to analyze and replicate the fighting styles of the world's best warriors. His ultimate goal was to capture Ryu and harness the Satsui no Hado, believing it to be the key to creating an unstoppable weapon. Ryu entered the tournament not for revenge or heroism, but because he knew Seth was hunting him. Everywhere he went, Ryu was being targeted, and Seth's agents were observing his every move. During one of these confrontations, Ryu completely lost control and transformed into evil Ryu. In this state, he was unrecognizable, a being of pure power and hatred. His aura burned red, his eyes glowed with murderous intent, and his very presence struck fear into those around him. Evil Ryu didn't fight with discipline, he fought like a predator. Ken, Sakura, and even Chun-Li intervened to help him, but Ryu's darkness was overwhelming. It was only after a direct confrontation with his own mentor, Guken, that Ryu finally found hope. Guken revealed that he had survived Akuma's attack during their legendary battle years ago. He had used a technique known as the power of nothingness, or Mu no Ken. Unlike the Satsui no Hado, which thrives on emotion and killing intent, Mu no Ken is a state of pure emptiness. It is the ultimate form of balance, an existence free of hatred, fear, and ego. Guken's return was a turning point for Ryu. His master didn't scold him for being tempted by darkness. Instead, Guken showed him compassion. He taught Ryu that Satsui no Hado wasn't his destiny. Ryu had the power to choose his path. Guken put Ryu through a brutal test, forcing him to control his emotions and find peace in the heat of battle. For the first time, Ryu began to understand that true mastery wasn't about defeating opponents, but about conquering himself. This arc culminated in Ryu's battle against Seth. Seth had absorbed techniques from fighters all over the world, making him a formidable enemy, but Ryu entered this fight with a newfound clarity. Instead of letting anger guide him, he tapped into the power of nothingness. In this tranquil state, he fought with perfect precision, using the Shoryuken and Hadouken not as weapons of rage, but as tools of discipline. Ryu defeated Seth, dismantling SIN's plans and proving that he could rise above the darkness that had haunted him for so long. Street Fighter IV showed us Ryu at his lowest point, but it also showed us his greatest triumph. For years, he had been defined by his struggle with Satsui no Hado. In this chapter, Ryu finally proved that he could control it. He learned that strength wasn't just about power, it was about choosing who you wanted to be, even in the face of temptation. Guken's presence in this era was vital. He reminded Ryu that the martial arts he practiced weren't just about fighting, they were about philosophy, discipline, and morality. Guken's survival also deepened Ryu's rivalry with Akuma. While Akuma continued down his dark path, Ryu had finally found hope. The contrast between these two warriors was now more apparent than ever. Akuma had chosen power at the cost of his soul, while Ryu had chosen balance and inner peace. By the end of Street Fighter IV, Ryu wasn't fully free from the Satsui no Hado yet, but he had taken a massive step forward. He was no longer a victim of his own power. He was beginning to master it, setting the stage for the final showdown with his inner demon in Street Fighter V. Part 8, Street Fighter V. Keiji and the Final Purge. Ryu's next journey took him deeper into spirituality. Guided by Dalsim, he learned not to suppress his darkness, but to conquer it completely. The spiritual training allowed him to fully awaken the power of nothingness and destroy M. Bison's physical body once and for all. But this victory came with a twist. The Satsui no Hado, now purged from Ryu, manifested as a living being called Kage, a horned, demonic shadow that existed solely to prove Ryu was nothing without him. Ryu faced Kage in battle, but instead of fighting with anger, he fought with serenity. By showing Kage that he no longer needed him, Ryu caused the entity to fade away. For the first time in his life, Ryu was truly free from darkness. Part 9, Street Fighter VI, The Wise Master. Street Fighter VI shows us a Ryu that fans had been waiting to see for years. For the first time, Ryu is portrayed as a true master, a fighter who has walked through darkness, overcome unimaginable battles, and emerged as a beacon of balance and strength. His physical appearance reflects this evolution. He is older, with a beard and broader shoulders, symbolizing wisdom and maturity. His GI is no longer pristine. It's worn and rugged, reflecting a lifetime of training and travel. Over it, he wears a kasaya, a Buddhist robe draped across his chest, representing his spiritual enlightenment. Ryu's demeanor is calm and collected. He is no longer haunted by nightmares of the Satsui no Hado or burdened by doubts. For the first time, Ryu feels whole. In the Street Fighter VI timeline, he acts as a mentor to younger fighters, teaching them not just technique but philosophy. Characters like Luke and Kimberly see him as a living legend, a man whose name carries weight in every corner of the world. Yet, despite his fame, Ryu remains humble, traveling the world with the same dedication to training that he had as a young man. Ryu's journey in Street Fighter VI emphasizes the passing of the torch. The game introduces a new generation of fighters, but Ryu's role is not diminished. Instead, he serves as the narrative anchor, a symbol of what every fighter strives to become. He is a man who has faced every kind of opponent, titans like Sagat, monsters like Nikali, gods like Gil, and demons like Akuma. Yet, his greatest victory was always over himself. That humility and inner peace make Ryu more formidable than ever. His rivalry with Ken continues, but it has evolved. Once, Ken and Ryu fought to prove who was stronger. Now their battles are a form of mutual respect. Ken's fiery personality is a foil to Ryu's calmness, and their clashes are no longer about ego, but about growth. Fans have always loved this rivalry, and in Street Fighter VI, it represents the ultimate friendship between warriors. Even Akuma's shadow looms over Street Fighter VI. Akuma remains a terrifying force, a dark reflection of what Ryu could have become if he had chosen the path of killing intent. Ryu's mastery of Mu no Ken makes him one of the few people capable of standing against Akuma's overwhelming power. Their rivalry has transformed from a battle of survival into a philosophical war, the power of nothingness versus the Satsui no Hado. Street Fighter VI's portrayal of Ryu is the culmination of decades of storytelling. He is no longer just a protagonist, he is a symbol of balance. His clothing, demeanor, and dialogue all reflect his growth. He is no longer the lone wanderer searching for purpose. He has become a teacher, a guide, and conclusion. Ryu's story is more than the tale of a fighter. It is a lifelong journey that mirrors the struggles of every person who has ever sought purpose, balance, or self-mastery. From the moment he was discovered as an abandoned child, Ryu was destined to walk a path few could understand. Raised in the mountains of Japan under Guken's guidance, Ryu's life was forged in discipline and shaped by a philosophy that power without control is meaningless. He was a blank canvas, molded not by luxury or fame, but by solitude, training, and the pursuit of something far greater than victory. From the first World Warrior tournament, where he scarred Sagat and felt the surge of darkness within him, Ryu's life has been a battle between two forces. The temptation of ultimate power through the Satsui no Hado, and on the path of restraint, humility, and enlightenment taught by Guken. That struggle defined his every choice. He has been a hero and at times a monster. He has stood face to face with tyrants like Emsa Bison, with gods like Gil, with demons like Nakali, and with Akuma, a man who represents the future Ryu could have embraced if he had chosen power over humanity. Through every chapter of his story, Ryu has grown, not just as a fighter, but as a person. He has walked alone for years, wandering from tournament to tournament, mountain to mountain, battlefield to battlefield, seeking opponents not to defeat them, but to understand himself. He has inspired generations of fighters, from Sakura's youthful optimism to Sean's determination and Alex's drive to prove himself. Even Ken, his lifelong rival, has looked to Ryu as a reminder that true strength is not about fame or fortune, but about dedication and discipline. The defining moment of Ryu's journey came when he confronted his inner darkness and cast it out completely. The Satsui no Hado, once a shadow that haunted his soul, became Keiichi, a physical embodiment of his rage and desire for power. By defeating Keiichi without hatred, Ryu didn't just win a fight, he proved that his spirit had matured beyond temptation. He transcended fear. He showed that a fighter's greatest enemy is not an opponent in the ring, but the battles within their own heart. Now, in Street Fighter VI, Ryu is the calm at the center of the storm. He is aged, but that age carries wisdom, not weakness. He wears his Kasaya robe, symbolizing spiritual enlightenment, and his demeanor is that of a teacher rather than a student. Yet even now, Ryu remains humble. He continues to train daily, still striving for mastery because he knows there is no finish line on the path he walks. His journey is eternal. That is what makes Ryu timeless. Ryu's story resonates with fans because it reflects a truth we all understand. The pursuit of strength is not about dominating others, but about mastering yourself. It's about fighting your demons, overcoming doubt, and growing a little stronger every day, no matter how long the road may be. Ryu represents the perfect martial artist archetype, not because he is unbeatable, but because he never stops learning. He is a character who shows that true victory is not found in tournaments, but in the quiet moments of reflection between battles, when a fighter confronts their own spirit. Culturally, Ryu has become more than a video game character. He is one of the most recognizable figures in gaming history, a symbol of perseverance and determination. His story has influenced countless other franchises and characters, but none have captured the balance of simplicity and depth that Ryu embodies. He is both relatable and legendary, humble yet powerful, disciplined yet compassionate. The beauty of Ryu's arc is that it is still ongoing. Even though Street Fighter VI presents him as a mentor and a symbol of peace, his journey continues. There will always be new fighters to train, new philosophies to explore, and new battles to fight, not out of anger, but out of love for the art. Ryu is proof that mastery is not a destination, but a lifelong pursuit. He has conquered the darkness inside him, but he knows that every day is another test of his resolve. When players see Ryu bow before a fight, and they hear him utter his iconic victory lines, they aren't just looking at a character, they're looking at decades of storytelling, growth, and philosophy distilled into one man. He is the soul of Street Fighter, the standard against which all other warriors are measured. Ryu's fists no longer burn with rage, they burn with resolve. His Hadouken is no longer a symbol of raw power, but of balance and control. He carries the lessons of his master Guken, the rivalries that shaped him, and the wisdom earned through countless battles. And while the Street Fighter world continues to evolve with new characters and stories, Ryu will always be its beating heart.